Welcome to the Money Puzzle. I am Brian Ramsey. Is the 60-40 portfolio dead? We believe it is. That's what we're going to talk about today. Across the table from me is Chris Vaughn. He's one of the partners at Family Wealth Planning Partners. Tell them where we are.
We are in Louisville, Kentucky, located right at the intersection of Shelbyville Road and Hurstbourne Lane. It's an intersection pretty much everybody in town knows how to get there, and that's why we're there. Make it easy on you.
Yeah, it's right behind the Flash Cube building. Everybody knows Flash Cube building.
We're not in the Flash Cube building.
Right behind.
Right behind.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. All right. So 60-40 portfolio. I asked the question, was it dead? We believe it is. Multiple reasons why we believe it's dead. But let's talk about the origin of the 60-40 portfolio. Now, some of you may say, well, I hear my advisor talk about 60-40 portfolio. Some of you may say, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. What's a 60-40? What are you even talking about? So in the 1970s, Harry Markowitz. Harry Markowitz developed or came up with this philosophy that 60% of the assets you have in an account. So let's take an IRA, for example. If you put 60% of those assets in stocks. Stocks are the kind of the volatile part of your portfolio. Most of us don't own individual stocks. We own mutual funds, which essentially are a big basket of stocks. Right. But if you put 60% of your assets in that bucket, and you had 40% of your assets were in a bucket that is non-stock. I mean, it was really meant to be more of a stable part of your portfolio. It was meant to be made up of fixed income, and historically fixed income has been fairly not stable. Volatile, fairly stable. And so that was sort of the concept. And the concept of the 60-40 portfolio was that if you try to time the market and you were putting all your eggs, as they say, into the stock market when the markets are good, and then you put all your eggs in the non-stock portion when the markets are bad, over time, an even portfolio of this kind of 60-40 mix would outperform. That was sort of the concept of what it was. Nowadays, I would say, Chris, 70, 80, 90% of the advisors in the business kind of base their practice off this kind of 60-40 portfolio.
Yeah, the 60-40 is the standard that they all use. But that's where we run into problems, and we really saw this in 2022. You know, going back to the basic structure of it, the stock part, the equity side, that 60%, that's the volatile side, and the bonds typically that underlie that fixed income side, that gave the stability. But what has happened, and especially as the Fed has become more involved on a more regular basis, is that the volatility in the bonds is as great as the stocks in many cases. So they've become allocated. When the stock market goes up, the bonds go up. When the stock market goes down, the bonds go down. So that's where we start talking about, is the 60-40 dead, is because you're not getting that allocation that gives you that safety on one side with the performance on the other. You're getting all or nothing, and that's where it's a little bit scary for people.
Yeah, and what's even more interesting is we've had a fair number of people that have come in and they have worked with another advisor, and they're really coming in for second opinion. We get a ton of second opinions. Hey, I'm with an advisor, but I'm interested, and I kind of watch your all show, I watch your podcast, and I'm interested to learn more about how you guys do things. And what's interesting is the 60-40 portfolio sort of gives a risk profile for a client or for an account. And after we do the planning process, we find out that clients more often than not don't need to be in a 60-40 portfolio, right? Because it's just adding too much risk. But it becomes sort of that's what everybody does. So advisors that that don't necessarily do the planning that we do and the extensive planning that we do will have a tendency to default to this 60-40 portfolio. And so everybody that comes in gets what? Gets a 60-40 portfolio. Yeah. When in all reality, when you do the planning process, we can find clients at times, and you know this, Chris, because we've done this, clients can sometimes be under-risked. I know it's probably not a word, but you get my point. And that is that they are not carrying enough risk that is going to make them successful to accomplish what they're wanting to accomplish.
Right. A great example of that is younger people. When you're dealing with somebody who is in their their 30s or early 40s, for example, or God forbid in their 20s, and you're putting them in a 60-40 in their IRA or their 401k. That doesn't make sense. You're looking at somebody who's 20, 30, 35, 40 years away from ever touching this money. Putting them in a 60-40 doesn't make any sense. They should be considerably more aggressive because of the time frame that they're dealing with. So that's that under-risked, if you will. And then you also see people who are in 60-40s, and this is across the board 60-40, that are 75, 80 years old. Why do they have that much exposure to the risk side? A 60-40 is appropriate for some people.
Yeah, I mean, we had a client that came in, it was a caller, had come in and said, hey, I'm interested in, taking you up on your offer, and the offer is, get a complimentary report, which we'll go through in just a minute. But when they came in, we looked at their portfolio, and you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about when I tell the story, but we looked at their portfolio, and it was essentially all individual stocks. Yep. Across the board. I mean, that was all they had were individual stocks, and they were in their mid to late 70s, I'd say, and they had plenty of money. It wasn't, their issue was never, are they going to run out of money? Their issue was, effectively, how do I get my wealth to my kids is really what their issue was. But the interesting thing was that they were had so much risk that I remember them talking about 2008. And how devastating 2008 was in their portfolio, because they were all equities. Why in the world would we subject a client to more risk than what they need? And I think a lot of times it comes down to the 60-40 portfolio and how we've got to have a certain amount of equity, got to have a certain amount of fixed income, and that's just not how we see things. And so, again, this is why the 60-40 portfolio is dead. So if you are stuck in a 60-40 portfolio, or your advisor said this 60-40 portfolio is perfect for you, well, you really only know if you go to a good financial planner. So, Chris, what are we offering people that call in today or call right now?
If they call right now, you just call 844-900-5210. Scan that QR code at the bottom of the page. All you're going to do is schedule an appointment with us. Come in, and we'll talk about that 60-40 that you've got or that you've been told that you should have, or any other questions that you've got. Get to know each other a little bit. We're going to look at the probability of success if you continue to do things the way that you're doing now. And then we're going to lay out what your money puzzle is going to look like. We'll give you a written report. Here's exactly the way things need to be done to make your plan as efficient as we possibly can.
And I can promise you one thing, folks. When you pick up that phone, you call, and you schedule an appointment, I can promise you one thing. No one in our office is ever going to sell you anything. That's not the business we're in. Pick up the phone call right now. Schedule a meeting with Chris. We're going to talk more about the 60-40 portfolio and how it's dead right after the break. All right, welcome to Friday at the Firm. As always, that's Chris, I'm Brian, that's Eric, that's Aaron. This week I got Penelope.
I really like this one. It's a little bit hard to find. We started out as, 4 guys in 4 different places with their own individual practices, and we realized that if we banded together, we could do things more efficiently, give the client a much better experience, and that's how Family Wealth Planning Partners began.
Outside of work, we love being with our families. We love spending time with our families.
We are all family people. How would we want our families treated? That's the way that we want to treat our clients, and that's the way we want to interact with them. It's not a handshake relationship. It's very much a hug relationship.
The most enjoyable part of our client meetings is the first 15, 20 minutes when we're just talking about family. We share our lives with our clients, and our clients share their lives with us. So our clients come to us for lifestyle preservation. That's what we provide them. How do I maintain my current lifestyle throughout retirement?
Well, we're absolutely a planning-centric firm. So everything that we do is rooted around building a comprehensive financial plan for our clients.
Our clients are people who are nearing retirement or in retirement. They've done a really good job saving over the course of their career working. They may have a 401k, they may have an annuity, a life insurance policy or something. So they've done a really good job doing things, but they don't know how to make all of those individual things work together. That's where we come in. We call this the money puzzle.
Our job is to make sure that we put together those puzzle pieces for you so you have a clear, comprehensive plan of what your retirement is going to look like.
The reason why we do what we do is when clients come to us with a messy puzzle, they sit down with us and say, I've got all my pieces that are everywhere. I want to retire. help me put my puzzle together.
When you bring all those pieces together, that's how you get it into alignment. That's how you bring in that picture into focus.
It's like a light bulb goes off in our clients' eyes, and you can see it. You can visibly see them look at this and say, okay, I get it now. I know how all the pieces of the puzzle come together to complete my financial picture.
We're trying to provide a relationship with our clients that they know that no matter what comes up, no matter what life throws at them, they can come to us and we can provide the answers and the recommendations to navigate those waters.
All right, welcome back to the Money Puzzle. I am Brian Ramsey. With me today is Chris Vaughn, and we're talking about, is the 60-40 portfolio dead? We believe it is, and here's why. Here's exactly why we sort of said no more 60-40, don't believe in it, and it all came down to two specific reasons. Number one, in our business, we have an issue with performance. What I mean by that is that in a blended portfolio, this sort of 60-40 portfolio we're talking about, when we talk about performance and we give, let's say, your portfolio is up 5%, and then they go home, the client goes home and looks, and they said, well, wait a minute, the S&P 500's up 10, why am I only up 5? That's an issue, because they look at it and say, well, my portfolio is not keeping up with the S&P 500. So we had to find a way to sort of fix that. Make it more easy for a client to understand when they're comparing performance. And we're not a firm that's built on performance, trust me, but it's something that clients look at. Yep. So it's one aspect that we looked and said, okay, that's sort of an issue we had to fix. Second issue came about because we had a client come in. This is the beginning of 2022. And this is really the trigger that started this discussion and how we created this proprietary risk on, risk off program. So we had a client come in. And she had sent me an email prior to coming in and said, hey, I want to take out $40,000 and I want to redo my kitchen. It's the conversation we want to have. Okay, awesome. Came in the beginning of 2022. We sat down. We had our opening, kind of how the kids, how the grandkids, all that good stuff. And as we started to talk about how their portfolio had done, and we were talking about, kind of how we see things over the next, 6 months, 12 months, we then got to the conversation of this distribution. And she said, I'm not going to do it. We're like, well, why wouldn't you do it? She's like, nope, my account's down. I said, well, okay. Remember, I pulled up her portfolio and said, well, right, you have holdings that are in line with the market and are down in value, but you have a couple of holdings that are not down as much or down any at all, and you can take a distribution out of that particular holding. And she said, no, I don't care. I'm taking, and mentally it was, I'm taking money out of the account that's down in value. So we spent an enormous amount of time, way more than, half hour, 45 minutes, just explain to her that the money that you have saved, you spent a lifetime of saving, is never going to make you happy looking at an account, right? It's never going to make you that happy. I don't care if it goes up, double, triple, it's never going to make you happy. What makes you happy is using your money to support your lifestyle. It's improving your lifestyle. And her improving her kitchen was improving her lifestyle. Yep. That's what she wanted. And so we finally convinced her to do it. That was the best part of the whole meeting. But she did it. And as you know, about 9 months later, funny, I woke up one morning and there was a text from her and it was a picture. So I'm like, oh, let's see what's going on. I look at it, it's a picture of a coffee mug in her brand new kitchen. And so that sort of sparked this conversation of how this kind of risk on, risk off proprietary process came about. We'd been considering it, had conversations.
Yeah, we've been working on it.
Been working on it for years.
We didn't know exactly how we wanted to do it.
Exactly. So take a second and sort of, again, explain the risk on, risk off proprietary process we have set up and the risk on and how that is a fair comparison to compare that to market returns, because that is all market. And then how we look at the risk off.
Well, so go back to the first part of that story that you were telling, Brian. When somebody takes the 60-40 portfolio and then they go home and they compare that to the S&P 500, they say, hey, you got me 5, the S&P was doing 10. What's going on? Well, it's not a fair comparison. That's what we call benchmarking. So the S&P 500 is an all-stock portfolio, if you will. It's the 500 biggest U.S. companies. So to compare a 60-40 to that is apples to oranges. So that was the first part of the problem. The second part was when the client that you were talking about, when she wanted to pull money out, she was scared to because her accounts were down, even though a good portion of that account was designed for her to pull money out. So that's where we started developing that risk on, risk off. So we set up two different accounts. One of them is risk on, one of them is risk off. So the first part of that is a fair comparison. If you want to take that out and you want to benchmark rate of return, it's fair. It's apples to apples. Are you keeping up the way that you should be? That's very straightforward. And then the second part of that risk off part of the portfolio, that account is designed to do one thing and one thing only. It grows at a very, very stable rate because there's no risk to it, right? So when you see that and you say, okay, the market's down, for example, in this case, but it's only that one account that's down. This other one, it's sitting here doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's very easy to pull money out of that account because you know that's what it's designed to do, even though this one, it's being volatile right now. That's where the risk on, risk off really comes in.
Yeah, and the other reason why we designed it was exactly this lady that wanted to take money out of her account. So think of it as if you have 10 to 15 years worth of your lifestyle need met in this risk off bucket with no downside risk. And let's say you come in and say, I need $40,000 because I want to redo my kitchen. That's fine. We can take money out of your risk off bucket that has no downside risk. And let's say that's 2 years worth of your lifestyle need. That's fine. We still have 8 to 10 years left in that bucket. So the beauty of that is that we can, no matter what market cycle we're in, let's say we're in a 2022 market cycle again, when the markets are negative, that's fine. We just let the markets do their thing. We still have 8 to 10 years left in your risk off bucket to provide you your lifestyle need. And let's say 4 or 5 years down the road, you come in and you say, okay, the markets are now up and we're up 30 or 40% in your risk on bucket. Then we simply just take money out of your risk on bucket and refill your risk off bucket. We really have to do that, once or twice during a person's lifetime, especially if we get 15 years out. So it's a great concept. It's super easy. We try to make things simple as we possibly can. So if you're watching and you say, okay, I'm interested in learning more about this risk on, risk off, and how risk on, risk off strategy and how it might help me, call the number on your screen, 844-900-5210. There's a QR code. You can scan that with your phone. You're scheduling an appointment. That's it. That's all you're doing is scheduling an appointment to come in to meet with one of the partners. When you come in, I can promise you one thing. You're never going to be sold anything. I know we say that a lot, but it's important you understand or have an expectation when you come in. What are you going to experience when you come in? We're not going to hard pressure sell you anything. But number two, we're going to provide you a report. Now, that report's going to provide you two pieces of information. First of all, it's going to let you know whether you have done a good enough job in saving money to then support your lifestyle throughout your lifetime. Number two, it's going to provide you a framework around how our proprietary risk on, risk off retirement plan is going to help support you throughout your retirement in supporting your lifestyle needs. So that's what you're going to get. It's a written document prepared by a certified financial planner. That's what you get every time you come in. And if you have an interest in working with us beyond that, we'll have that conversation of what that looks like. So look, if you've got more than $250,000 saved for retirement and you want to pick up the phone, 844-900-5210, and come and get your free plan, it's free. I'm not going to charge you for it. It's simply no obligation other than picking up the phone and calling us. But you got to do that right now. Call us 844-900-5210. We'll be right back to continue our conversation of how the 60-40 portfolio is dead.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
All right, welcome back to the Money Puzzle. Today's 60-40, that's what we're talking about, the 60-40 portfolio. It's dead in our opinion. We've totally gotten away from the old school, have X amount of percent of your, 60% of your portfolio in stocks, 40% in bond. Don't believe that anymore. It's all about lifestyle preservation. That's the business we're in. We're in the lifestyle preservation business. Doesn't matter about 60-40 portfolio. It's whatever you need in order to accomplish your goals. That's what we're talking about. All right, Chris, you were going to tell us a story. Actually, in between the break, you were telling me a story, and I was like, oh, yeah, great point. Why don't you make that point?
Well, and the point was that the reason that people are in a 60-40 portfolio is because at some point in time, somebody convinced them that's what they should be doing. And the reason they convinced them of that is probably rate of return. This is a safe portfolio, and you're going to get this rate of return on it. And they don't want to move them into something more conservative when it's appropriate because they want to be able to get that ROI. And unfortunately, people compare what they're doing to others by, well, what kind of rate of return am I going to get? What is that going to do for me? And that's the wrong way to look at it. And you just mentioned it a minute ago. Rate of return is irrelevant. Lifestyle preservation is the important part. So by using that risk on, risk off model, what we're doing is we're reducing that risk as low as we possibly can and still achieve the goal of preserving that lifestyle. Why would you take on more risk than what is necessary to accomplish the goal? That serves no purpose except to run the risk of the plan failing. And this is not something that you want to fail at. You can't go back and fix it after you've totally failed. Other than, maybe becoming a greeter at Walmart, which is not what you want to do in retirement. You want to work because you want to, not because you have to. And that's why rate of return is not what we should be looking for. We should be looking for lifestyle preservation.
Yeah, what's interesting is we've started to have lots and lots of conversations. About this whole, 60-40 portfolio is dead, and how we set aside or we use our proprietary risk on, risk off retirement plan. And, we talk about the stability part of, the risk off portfolio. And a lot of times what we're getting is, well, that's an income need. I don't necessarily have an income need in retirement. And we're like, well, then you've done a fantastic job of saving in retirement. Good example. We had an individual that came in several weeks ago, and his wasn't, actually him and his wife, they didn't necessarily need to preserve their income. It was more of a vacationing is their lifestyle. So they vacation all the time, and they're always going. And in fact, when they come in, the majority of our conversation is, okay, where'd you go? Where you been? Right. Tell us about it. And then we're making notes. Okay, maybe you went to St. Kitts. I know you just went there. We're like, oh, okay, I'll write that place down. So when they originally came to us, they were like, our need is to preserve our lifestyle, but it comes in the form of vacationing. So we sat down, walked them through our process that we offer every single person that's watching today, which is sort of a framework of how we would accomplish that. They liked it and said, okay, great, let's move forward. And so we move forward. Part of our conversation is develop a more in-depth plan, which involves looking at what they want their money to do, and they need their money to preserve vacation. So what we did is we determined how much they wanted, and I can't remember exactly what the number was. Right. $15,000, $20,000 a year, not a month, a year. But the interesting thing was, we went back and showed them, and we actually have software that actually shows them this, so it's not a guessing game. It's actually, that's the science behind what we do. But we showed them, okay, here's 10 to 15 years. And I think we went with 10 years, but we could go 15, but we went 10 years of what your your vacation need is. So it goes back to, it doesn't necessarily have to be income. It's all about preserving lifestyle. And what's interesting is since we started this, we've had several people that I've met at cocktail parties, or actually this was at a pool party at a neighbor's house. And one guy came up and said, well, what do you do? And I remember I used to have this sort of elevator speech to say, well, I would tell people, I'm in the financial planning business, and we help people manage money, and, and that sort of goes over people's heads occasionally. Or they'll go, oh, that's interesting. But what's most interesting is now when somebody asks me what I do, I say I'm in the lifestyle preservation business. And they say, well, what is that? What are you talking about? So we get the opportunity to explain the lifestyle preservation business and the fact that we can preserve your lifestyle, whatever that is, throughout your retirement by using our proprietary model. Now, the reason we talk about this lifestyle, the lifestyle preservation business is, I think sometimes when clients come in, what my experience is, they can't articulate what the money that they've saved or, they've saved over the course of their career, they can't articulate what it's supposed to do. Because they think they're supposed to tell you, oh, Chris, let's see, I need to go to the beach, or I need to, go hiking, or I need to,
Right.
That's not what people want. It's not what people want to articulate. When they articulate what it is they actually want, it really comes down to they just want to live the lifestyle they've been living. They want to go out to eat. They want to know they can go to a basketball game. They want to know they can go play golf. They want to know, they can go travel and see the grandkids. Whatever it is, that's really what they want. Is I just want to know I can continue to do the things that I've been doing throughout my lifetime. So I tell you, that's the business we're in, is we're just preserving that.
And I'll add to that. They want to know that when the news about the markets and everything is bad, when the volatility is out there, they want to know that they don't care. They're going to continue to live that lifestyle. They're going to continue to do those vacations. They're not worried about what the markets are doing because they know that their lifestyle is set up and preserved. That's what they really want.
No, that's right. All right, Chris, we're wrapping up the show. So what is our offer to someone watching right now?
Give us a call at 844-900-5210 or scan that QR code at the bottom. Set an appointment to come in and see us. We're not going to sell you anything. We promise. That's just not the way we like to do things. But we'll talk about how we would use our proprietary risk-on, risk-off retirement model on you, how it would apply to building out your money puzzle so that whatever lifestyle that you want, you don't have to worry about whether that's going to be there or not in the future. You don't have to worry about whether the markets are going to go up or down. You can still go out and live your life exactly the way that you want to.
That's right, folks, and that report is free, no obligation. Make sure that you pick up the phone, call, schedule an appointment, and make sure that you watch next week on The Money Puzzle.